Welcome to the Shacknews Chattycast, the podcast that absorbs the powers of its defeated enemies. I'm Steve Watts.
I'm Brian Carr. Hello, Steve. Hello, Shackers. Today's Chattycast brought to you by Audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download, and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's CHATTYCAST. Thank you very much to Audible for supporting the show.
Did you just improvise that whole thing? That was amazing.
No, Brian is
I'm what they call... I'm a former radio professional.
Yeah, he's an experienced radio ad man. It's very impressive. So every week on the Chattycast, we pick a big topic, we post about it on the Shacknews Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments fueling the discussion, hence Chattycast. This week, our guest is the man with more game magazines than the Library of Congress, game historian and Mega Man Legends or Legacy Collection producer, Frank Cifaldi.
Hi.
Welcome, Frank.
Hi. I need you to write a news story for me real quick. If you don't mind.
and former boss of Steve Watts, Frank Cifaldi. We worked together for a little bit of history, I suppose. We worked together back at the 1UP days. You were one of a rotating door of news editors.
I was the final one? No, I wasn't because I quit.
No,
that's right.
Yeah. There were others.
Who was after me? Was it Mackie?
It was Garnet before you or after you? I think it was right before
Garnet
you.
Was way before.
And then maybe Mackie after, yeah. So
okay.
Bob Mackie now of US Gamer. So
yep.
History. It's all it's all a strange little incestuous pool in the gaming industry. So we're going to get to our big topic, which this week is game preservation, and that's actually why we asked Frank here, because the new Mega Man Legacy Collection is very much about that. But first, we're going to talk about what we are playing, and I know that Brian and I have both been playing the Mega Man Legacy Collection. So
we'll talk about that later.
Cool. I'm glad you guys are playing it.
You've played a little bit. I played it for review. My review is up on Shacknews. But Brian, just like initial impressions right off the bat, what are you thinking so far?
A couple things that jumped out at me. The concept art is fantastic. Like I was telling you guys off the air, that's where I spent most of my time with it so far. I also booted up Mega Man 2 because that's immediately what I would do with any sort of thing like this. The emulation is spot on. It's just like because that's like it's easy to say that because it's been so long, and for a lot of us, like the emulated versions are kind of the ones that we know better than the originals. But this is the original. Like I could fire up the NES version I have within arm's reach, and it would be basically the same thing. So it's truly wonderful. And the other thing too, and this is going to be a weird thing, I love the filters. Like the filters, like the CRT
Except for the full
filters.
screen. Like no, that's
I didn't do that. Like I like the borders. I think they're cute, so I put those up. But the CRT filters I think are some of the best because in a lot of emulated games packages you see that a lot. These are some of the best I've seen. So it's a little thing, but they actually do look like a monitor or like a CRT television.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm just saying that because you're on here. I'd say that anyway, just for the record.
We'd be like rambling about this no matter what. But
it doesn't take much to get us talking about Mega Man.
As somebody who I think I've said on the Chattycast before, so it's not news. But like my first website was a Mega Man site. So as somebody who like feels like pretty knowledgeable of this stuff, flipping through the concept art, like these are deep cuts. This is stuff that even I was like, I've never heard of that rejected boss design or whatever. So it's really like a cool little museum piece.
I really like that stuff, and we made the decision really early on to not lock any of it because I think that there is an audience, because I am exactly that audience, and I exist, that would potentially buy this collection and maybe never really play through the games, but just want to sort of enjoy Mega Man. You know what I mean? And I wanted there to be enough value in there for that type of player to still feel like they got a good deal. I think we hit it as best we could.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I noted in my review. I was saying, you have the challenge stages and you have the games, and I think a lot of collections, to give you a carrot on a stick, it would be like, well, once you finish the game, then you get to see the museum art, kind of thing. And I just appreciated that you didn't do that, because one of the first things I did was just flip through all 6 games of art and just be like, oh, that's so cool.
And it's especially something I like in light of the other big kind of game history collection that came out. Rare Replay, where you have to sit and do all of this stuff for some games that, honestly, let's be completely honest, are not that great.
Yeah.
To watch these really good video packages. Like, I love the video featurettes, but I also don't want to sit and play Gunfight to be able to watch them. In fact, I'd like to play Gunfight as little as possible.
Yeah, some of those later documentaries, I'm like, oh man, I really would like to watch that. Is it on YouTube yet? Because I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know if I have it in me to replay all of Nuts and Bolts or whatever.
I can only handle so much Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we were trying to avoid, and we did it.
Yeah,
and also
yeah.
our TV filter's way better than theirs. So, that's the only smack talk I'm gonna do this entire podcast. Is
we're starting up a feud.
Filter, that's a bad TV filter. That is wrong. I told them in person. That is not a secret. Like, that is not what a television ever looked like.
No, like, the thing was crazy. Like, I was playing it, and like, Mega Man's ghosting. He's actually ghosting.
Yeah.
Like, that was definitely what old TVs did.
Yeah, so, they kind of did. That's a little bit of a cheat. Like a lot of what's in that filter is not really an accurate simulation of what a CRT does to a game, as much as it's like what we can do with common GPUs and a 1080p resolution to make your brain feel like you're playing on a TV.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's the feeling of playing a classic game.
So like that ghosting doesn't really happen on a CRT, but something sort of like it happens. And it's a nice approximation of it.
Well, that's how effective it was. I'm imagining things that never actually happened. Actually happened.
Remember, he's like, it looked exactly like that. Of course it did. Yeah. So, Frank, we're both playing your game. Obviously, that's probably good news for you. But what are you playing these days?
So the last game I started playing. Okay, I'm gonna have two answers. So I often just kind of dig through random Game Boy games looking for gold because I feel like that's an unexplored system. And I just recently discovered Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: Radical Rescue.
Nice.
Which is a 1993 Konami Metroid-like game that predates Symphony of the Night by quite a bit. And it's really cool because you're not finding new powers, you're finding the other turtles. And all the other turtles that you switch between have different abilities. So like Michelangelo can twirl his nunchucks and do like a floaty jump. And then Donatello, I haven't unlocked the others, I just kind of peeked ahead in the game facts, but I think Donatello can wall jump, and like Raphael can climb, and I think Leonardo can like down strike to hit these blocks below you to get down. And it's actually pretty good. It's it's a Konami game from 1993 when Konami was actually Konami.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, in the context
they were making video games.
Yeah.
In the context of the NES and arcade games, like, when did this fall on that spectrum?
Well, 93, it's like, I don't know, like, I don't think they had even done the tournament fighters yet at that point. We're still in the 8-bit days. So this is like Turtles in Time kind of era, I think.
That's so weird.
Yeah, and it's it's cool. It's not. I don't know. It's like, and actually the music's really good too for Game Boy. It's a solid game that I think everyone overlooked because it's the third Game Boy game. Why would anyone play that? Especially since the first two weren't very good. And then the other game I'm playing is Raw Danger on the PS2. You guys know this game?
No, you're breaking out the obscure ones for me.
Okay, so Raw Danger is it's the sequel to what we know here as Disaster Report. Do you guys know Disaster Report? Okay, so this is a series. I forget what it's called in Japan because it's all Japanese words that I don't know. But it's part 2 of this series that has had 3 or 4 so far. And each game is about a disaster that happens and is sort of an action adventure survival game around that. Raw Danger is the only one I've played. It's really interesting because it's about this flood that happens in this sort of ideal city. And the way that different residents deal with it. And you actually, as you progress through the game, you play as a perspective of 5 different people, sort of, and you cross paths throughout the game. And so, like, okay, for example, the first player you play as is this waiter who's like working at this dinner party that the mayor's hosting at the beginning of the game. And that's your tutorial, is like serving food to people and stuff. and it's actually really interesting and cool. But like the building floods, you escape with people, and you watch this news broadcast. And by the way, it's like it's a PS2 game from Japan, released here on a budget label, so it's got that really hot bad voice acting and sort of goofiness and stuff.
I miss
So
those days.
yeah, so like you get up to the surface and there's a news broadcast. It's like it's flooding and the city's evacuating. Also, this convicted murderer is on the loose. And it
Oh, by the
shows,
way.
yeah, and it shows this woman, and she's like, a pretty anime girl, not just in terms of the style of the game. She's not literally like an anime girl, just a pretty young woman. And then you look down, and this girl you're with is like, is that? And you see that exact woman like hiding behind a car, and then this cop runs up to you really fast, right? And he pulls out a picture of that woman. And he's like, "Have you seen this woman? I'm a cop." And behind his arm, you still see her in the background, like looking exactly like the picture. And then you can either tell him, "Oh yeah, she's right behind you," or "No, I haven't seen her." And that's the moment where I'm like, "This game's brilliant. This is gonna be great."
Is that cop the killer?
That cop is not a good person.
Okay, yeah. I figured.
And
there was
that
some
girl.
shenanigans.
That girl is innocent, it turns out, spoilers, because you play as her later, and she didn't actually kill her brother, at least I didn't. But yeah, there's weird little things like that, and like there's a whole lot of decisions that affect things, and some of them are hilarious. Like there's one part where you're a waiter and you're out with the kitchen staff in this disaster, and like a bridge collapses, and the head chef, with his like big chef's hat on, and that still is like hanging off the ledge of this collapsed bridge, and you run over to him, right? And you have three options, which are try to save him, smile at him, or steal his hat. This game is amazing.
You tried to steal his hat, right? Like.
Not the first time. The first time I want to try to keep everyone
That would have
alive.
been my immediate impulse.
I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's like playing a Fallout game or some other RPGs. Like that first time through, it's like I want to do everything right, and then the second playthrough, I want to
be a good person and a hero.
Yeah. So I'm playing through that. I want to play it again because I actually want to start streaming it, and I think we're at a time, at least for me personally, where I'm kind of over streamers playing a game for the first time live.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather watch people
the let's play style. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather watch people who know what they're doing explain why they like a game and why they're making choices they make. I like that a lot better. So I want to try to maybe do that for Raw Danger. So that's why I'm playing it twice.
Cool. So I think we're going to move to our big topic because it's very big this week, and also like the reason we invited you on. So my setup in the chatty was basically like film and comic books, video games have flourished primarily as an entertainment medium, but as gamers are growing up and sort of appreciating games on this deeper level, more of us are understanding the need for keeping games intact in their original state. So this week we're looking at game preservation. How do we go about this in the face of technical challenges? Is it best to keep it to hobbyists? Do we need an organization like the ESA to step in? Or should publishers take charge of preserving their own back catalog? That was the way I presented the question to the chatty. But before we start on any of those questions, Frank, Capcom, as we've mentioned, just launched the Mega Man Legacy Collection. Lost in some of this nostalgic chatter, I think has been some of the under-the-hood mechanics that make it all work. When you announced the game, the Eclipse engine was really kind of introduced as a way to preserve classic games in general, not just Mega Man. Could you talk a little bit about the Eclipse engine, what you were trying to do that, and the technology behind it?
Sure.
What prompted all this?
So, I mean, you know me a little bit, Steve. You know that the game preservation is just, every job I've taken in video games is an excuse to help preserve games better. I didn't become a journalist because I had ambitions of being a journalist. I just kind of felt that was a good way to get in and start doing the real work, as it were. And so the new digital Eclipse, which I'm the head of restoration for, which is a title I'm very proud of making up, that was founded to try the commercial angle with preservation. So the thinking was, if we can find a way to make keeping games in print profitable, and actually worth money to the rights holders, then that's only going to be good, you know. And so what we set out to do was prove that there is a market for presenting classic games in a premium package, and keeping them in print, hopefully indefinitely. So there's two parts to that. The first part is in the presentation, which we already sort of talked about, all the museum features and the extras and stuff, and actually making people feel like they downloaded something substantial as opposed to a front end for emulators or whatever. And then the second part of that is the tech. And our thinking with the tech was that if we develop our own tools in-house, our own engine, keep it simple enough that it's fairly easy to port our engine to other platforms, and then put all the work on porting the platform as opposed to porting game per game, then eventually it's just going to make sense that any game that gets ported to our platform is going to stay in print, because it's actually not going to cost very much to get it to the next platform. In development, at least with our tools, like, the bulk of the budget is just getting it up and running on a platform, and then making it cross-platform is not cheap or anything, but is not so much more than that. So what we sort of identified was that for film or for books or even comics or whatever, there's the equivalent, or music even. There is some notion of taking that original work and archiving it in a lossless way, and then it's safe forever, no matter what new medium comes out. Like, if you're with film, okay, if you're taking a 34 millimeter film or whatever the nitrate stock was or whatever on the film, and you're scanning it in 4K or even 8K, which is arguably overkill, like, we're only at 1080p right now, so that format is pretty safe in the long term, as long as the digital files are kept up. So there's the equivalent of scanning a movie and it's safe, right? There's books are just words. Music, you can arguably just digitize the individual tracks, the highest quality possible in a lossless way, and that's all. That there is that notion for all other mediums except software, because different platforms are completely different beasts, and there is no, like, this game is preserved and will always run on things. So there is no magic bullet solution to that. It's impossible. But our answer to that is just one of many possible answers, which is, well, just build this engine that the idea is once a game runs on the engine, it runs wherever that engine runs, give or take. And so that's our approach here. It's like, now that we've got Mega Man 1 through 6 running, now that we've got all this archived material, because that's an important part of it too. I don't think preservation is just executable code. I think it's all the context around it too. So now that we have all this material sort of archived and scanned and together, when the PlayStation 5 comes out, it's not going to be very difficult for us to get this collection running on that too. Right. So that's the idea, is that we front load all the costs now, and then it's fairly easy for Capcom to keep these games in print forever, or any other platform they work for.
So when it came to building this game, was it was the impetus sort of Digital Eclipse wanted to preserve old games, and you went to Capcom and said, we have this idea and we want to sort of test it with Mega Man, or was it more, this might be things that you can't actually talk about, but was it more Capcom coming to you and saying, like, hey, we want to make another collection of Mega Man games, but this time we want to do it right, and can you help us with that? What kind of give and take was it?
So really it was our pitch. We didn't go in there and pitch like we want to put 1 through 6 on a package. What we went in and pitched was our vision for game preservation, and our tech in an early form, and the demo we happened to bring was Mega Man 1, because hint hint, that's what we really want to be doing here. But I mean, it's not, it's I think the answer you'd get from Capcom is you know this technology is cool and Capcom's content is worth this kind of treatment, and what better way to start with than Mega Man, right?
Yeah. Sort of even if they haven't used it lately, it's sort of still their mascot to a large extent. They have his face everywhere, you know.
Yeah. So it's, like we came at him with the tech, and this was like quite a while ago. It was like 2+ years ago that we started talking about this, like 2.5 maybe. And it just kind of took a while for the stars to align and for this project to make sense, and then we did it. But it wasn't, it wasn't like Capcom didn't come to us and say, hey, we want to do Mega Man, what can you do? It was like, we have this tech, what can we do with this tech? Let's start with Mega Man and see how that goes and go from there.
So is the tech, on the sort of under the hood sense, is this engineered, the version that's in this game at least, is this engineered for Mega Man games, like specifically the engine Capcom was using to make Mega Man games, or is it more like, well, now we can emulate NES games pretty easily?
Yeah, it's an NES module that supports, it's an NES like module is what I should say, and it's only really optimized for Mega Man games, but that's because those are the only ones that we've bothered doing yet. But it's we're not porting from source, but we're not emulating either, because that was a requirement from our client. It's what we're basically doing is taking the original binaries, meaning just the images from the cartridges, which Capcom has a good archive of, but if I don't even need those, I could rip things from carts. I have the equipment. I've been dumping ROMs since 1999. All right.
Listening FBI?
I have to delete them after 24 hours. It's okay.
yeah, that's how it works, right?
I have made no secret that the start of my video game career was as a ROM pirate. But anyway, I think
you found a way to turn legitimate from that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is preservation, darn it, and that, it's such a big topic. I don't think we can even get into all that, but that is a form of preservation. So what we did was we have the original binaries and we run them through a process where we're taking the original NES code, executing it in our own internal NES emulator. This isn't in the game or anything. It's just development tools, and we're statically recompiling the game into our own format. So the original ROMs aren't in there. There is no NES emulator. We're basically just sort of dynamically porting the game sort of to C, and then running that C file, the Eclipse ROM of it, I should say, in a hardware module that's similar to the NES but doesn't actually have any Nintendo components to it. And that was all like a workaround, just because for that system specifically, we were asked to find a different solution.
Sorry to cut you off, but were there moments that you'd go and play because you said you're dynamically recompiling it and making it feel like the old. Were there moments you'd go in and play the NES versions and be like, oh, there's a certain glitch here, there's a certain way that this responds that our emulator isn't quite, or not emulator, but our version isn't quite doing, and then you had to make tweaks to it? Did it sort of build itself once you got the technology off the ground?
No, it was basically like get the games running and then play them and see if anything's wrong. And I mean, hilariously, well, with one scanline counter exception just for Mega Man 3 that was a real big pain in the butt. Really, the only errors that cropped up were old errors, but done wrong. You know what I mean? So it was like glitches that were glitches in the original game, but our version of those glitches were not the same as stock hardware. So there were moments where we had to tweak things to make the glitches the real glitches. There's one that we never got around to with the Mecha Dragon, so there's an exclusive for you.
It's exciting.
There's a Mecha Dragon glitch that doesn't look exactly like the same glitch in Legacy Collection.
Yeah. I mean, the example that I noted in my review, I sort of opened my review with this because for me it's just such an evocative part of that game is the fighting Needleman and Gemini Man with Gemini Man's weapon.
Yeah.
You know, when he jumps, because it's slowing down, you're like, okay, well, it's way easier to hit this at the right time, so it'll bank off and hit him in the right way.
Yeah.
And that just like that was like the test for me when I got to that point. I was like, oh, it feels perfect. It feels exactly like I remember it.
Yeah, all the slowdowns in there. There's a small reduction to the flicker, just a little bit. And that's because there's two ways that an NES game will flicker. One of them is if there's more than 8 sprites in a scan line, then the hardware will start flickering them to not cause slowdown. And we fixed that a little bit because we didn't feel like there was any argument that there was artist intent there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's also another form of flicker which is actually coded into the games to prevent slowdown for other reasons, and all that flicker's still in.
Yeah.
The best example is Copy Robot in Mega Man 1. Like when those two things come down the screen and like copy Mega Man over to the other side. Like on the actual NES, when those two modules pass by the life bar, they flicker like crazy, but they actually look fine-ish in Legacy
Oh, that's
Collection.
funny.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of dominating the questions here, and I know that Brian's been playing. Brian, do you have anything to ask before we move on into the broader topic?
I'm just glad to know that there's a glitch in the Mecha Dragon, because I was trying to do that challenge last night and I kept getting killed by it as soon as it appears, and it's never happened to me before, so I'm just going to blame it on that.
Yeah, that is not a glitch. That is my very mean placement in the challenge. that is a design. I don't know if I call that flaw. I might regret that placement a little bit now that I'm watching people play.
Was that you sort of placing where the warps were in the challenges?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, that was me.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's basically like it is the NES remix of Mega Man, and I totally. I didn't know how much I needed that to be a thing in my life. Until I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, we early on it was just let's do something NES remix like to mix things up, but it kind of became clear when we were making it that it's like, well, all 6 of these games basically play the same, so we could actually remix all the games together and it would work, and it's cool. It works really well.
It's so just, now I can slide or whatever.
Yeah, none of that. There is for the games that have it. Sorry, we didn't put slides in the old games.
Oh, yeah. Not sliding in Mega Man 2. Yeah.
So I am kind of curious about one thing. Some of the chatter I've seen at various places around the internet are people complaining about the fact that you can't, or that it's not recompiled to run in 1080p, like full screen. That that they didn't get rid of the flicker and that sort of thing, and. Yeah. And I think your reasoning for having it in there is very sound. I agree with it. But then they'll bring in the argument, well, save states were never part of the game before. Now, as somebody who loves save states,
as an old man, I rely on those.
Yeah. But did you So I'm just kind of curious. Like, what is kind of your response to that? Like, where did you guys decide? Like, what points were you going to make concessions, and what points you just did not?
So there's save states and auto fire, I guess, is the other one, right?
Oh, the turbo, yeah. Which
the turbo existed. You just needed to buy a stupid controller from.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one argument, but like, we didn't want to limit the way people play these games. We just wanted to limit how the game's played. I don't know if that's too does that make sense? You know what I mean?
No, it does.
Yeah, like we wanted the games when they're being played to play like the originals.
Right.
But I don't think that the concession of letting the player play that original game the way they want to, I think that's a totally separate thing, and that's why we put those in. Plus, it's really easy to do. Like it's just a simple task for us relatively to support save states, which we had to do anyway for challenge mode. Yeah. So why not throw it in?
And I'm glad you did. Believe me, I'm very glad you did.
You did make some concessions. Like I saw you mention on Facebook pretty soon after it was announced. You said something like you can make it full screen if you're a monster.
Yeah.
So that's not how it actually appeared.
Yeah. No, that's true. And those are options that don't affect the. Well, that does affect the presentation of the game, but again, it's like if you could do that, you could force that if you wanted to anyway. You know what I mean?
Like if you really want fat Mega Man running around, you can go ahead.
I think I'm gonna try it just to see. Like I have to.
I tried it. It doesn't look good.
It's awful.
No. It's awful.
but the option's there for people who want it, and I was the first streamer of the game the night it came out was playing in widescreen. It was driving me crazy.
You just like contact him like, I made this game.
It's almost like the reverse problem of people, because remember back when DVDs were first getting out, you had the full screen and the widescreen versions, and the widescreens were obviously the way to watch because that's the way the film was shot.
Yeah,
it's like the reverse problem now. It's like gamers just cannot accept that something theoretically should not fill their screen because that's not the way it's produced.
And the borders are I think are a nice compromise. My brother was actually like, I'm afraid of burn-in, and I'm like, I don't think burn-in is really even a thing anymore.
Like unless you're running a plasma, it's not.
Yeah. So, but like I think the borders are a nice concession. The bar thing was kind of funny because people were like, oh yeah, I watched it in full screen because in widescreen you get those stupid black bars on the top and bottom. It's like, that's not what that means. Anyway, so we can move on to the broader topic. I think that we can sort of touch on things that you already mentioned, Frank. One of our commenters said. He basically said keep it to the hobbyists, and you mentioned that pirating is sort of a form of preservation, hobbyists. And obviously you're working for a company now that's doing it on a more professional level.
Sure.
Where do you see the divide between how much of the responsibility should be on hobbyists versus companies versus even an organization or publishers, things like that?
I don't know that I'm so interested in like assigning responsibility to anyone. I don't think.
So it's just like whoever gets to it.
I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I think there is a moral obligation or somewhere, but I don't think it's anyone's responsibility. It should be, it should be a labor of love when it happens. But I don't think that it's possible to legally do as much direct like software copy preservation as amateurs are going to do. I don't think there is any way to get to the point where we can outdo the pirates in terms of just keeping digital files available for those who are seeking that.
Well, companies outdo like everyone in the world who's interested in this.
That's never
combined efforts.
Exactly. And it's like. There's lawyers are good and bad, and it's I think we're at a pretty comfortable point right now where it's like don't ask permission and it's fine for the most part for older stuff because it's
sort of a look the other way policy, it seems like.
It's not like most rights holders care that you can download a ROM. It's not like keeping them up at night or anything. It's they'd rather make money off it, but if they're not currently making money off of it, then they've identified that they can't. Right? Is kind of my perspective. But I don't know. Like I'm not condoning software piracy or anything, but I do think that in terms of like how digital games are going to be made safe, a torrent of PT, for example, is probably the only way that that's ever going to be playable 10 years from now.
Right. And I mean, you can have people ripping these things and, just getting them off the cartridge and things like that. It seems like there's a divide between preserving the code, which is, relatively easy to do for hobbyists, and replicating, hardware that accurately replicates what it's like to have played it on the original. And that's probably where companies kind of have to step in, like yours did.
Well, I mean, there's more to it than that. Like, I would like to live in a world where source code is kept safe. That stuff gets lost constantly. We've lost source code already with me working here at Other Ocean. I mean, it just happens. And that's me at a company. The preservation guy. It's like, oh, we can't find that source. It's just gone. I don't know what the solution is for that. You mentioned the Library of Congress at the beginning of this podcast, and you are actually right in that I have more video game magazines than the Library of Congress. I know that because I have visited the Library of Congress, and I know the librarians who run the games archive, and
they're just like, hey, Frank.
And I in fact set up the majority of the donation that went into their archive for video game magazines. I know exactly how many they have.
That was meant to be a hyperbolic joke, but
it's true.
Look at you.
Yeah. I actually found a really good eBay lot that I just crowdfunded and bought for the Library of Congress because they as much as you think that anything that goes to the Library of Congress is safe, it's not. They threw away all of it. It's gone. But anyway, so like the Library of Congress, when I was there, I was at their facility in Culpeper. It's actually their audio-video archive that the video game stuff kind of falls into by default, and they have a substantial archive of like the nitrate masters of American cinema. They have. I think they have Citizen Kane there. I think they have Casablanca and Dracula. Like they have nitrate film, like the masters. And when companies, want to do a Blu-ray, sometimes they have to call the Library of Congress to like get a print off of their master because that's where it ended up. And I'd like to live in a world where there's something like that for source code, so that when we're talking to companies about bringing old games back and they don't have that source code, we can go retrieve it from an archive. UCLA, same sort of thing. Like UCLA has a film archive. I think honestly that's just because source is digital. You know what I mean? I think that's why it disappeared. If source was somehow, well, I guess it used to be on paper, but if source was always on paper, I think it would be safe.
We need punch cards. Cards software.
So, I think that's like the scariest thing that's happening is that no one's good at maintaining source, and it's not just keeping source around; it's also keeping it compilable, which is its own challenge. But anyway, that's one of my fears as far as game preservation goes. That games will disappear because source disappears, and the source is the game.
Yeah, and I want to read another user comment and sort of segue into something related. He said that Ice Cream Bus, our user, Ice Cream Bus, said, nostalgia was lost on me with Master Chief Collection. While the updated graphics and cutscenes were great, they fixed a handful of multiplayer glitches I was particularly fond of. So fixing glitches in remasters is another sort of issue, or just kind of adjusting things, modernizing things in general. We were talking a little bit about Rare Replay earlier, and I'm not trying to like dig on them or anything, but they have sort of a weird combination of things where some of them are very closely emulated, and others are launching the 360 version of an N64 game, and it's kind of a weird hodgepodge where some games are the updated version, some games are the old versions. So as far as updating things, modernizing things, obviously your philosophy with this software that you guys developed is to keep everything as close as possible and not modernize things. But how do you feel just kind of in general about that being the trend with publishers when they bring out things like remasters?
I think it's I don't think we should be George Lucasing our heritage. I don't think that that's right. Or if you do that, then there should be some option at least to play the original mode. And we're not good at that. It's kind of a new thing, our approach, though, and you can tell it's new because people are really mad about it.
It's so weird how being authentic is like this wild new idea.
Yeah, like if you read the Steam forums right now, most of the threads are like, "Why is there flicker and slowdown? That's so lazy.
Why is this not 60 frames? Why is it da-da-da?"
Well, it is 60 frames, but
I know, but
because that's what the
they never let facts get in the way.
Sure. But although it does drop below 60 if your GPU isn't great and you're using a filter. But it's kind of a new approach to things, and I am very thankful that Capcom was not only on board with our approach, but is messaging it, from the beginning. It's like, this is an archival release. Like, we wanted to start over and do these right. And Ray Jimenez, our producer on the project, he was the producer on Anniversary Collection, and he's going out there and telling people what the flaws were with that one. And I think it's great that Capcom USA has been that kind of partner that's like totally on board with it and believes in it like we do. But it is a new concept, right? Like, because traditionally re-releasing old games is like I don't know, there's some shame to it or something. Like we got to fix these a little bit to make them more palatable, whether that's new graphics or reducing flicker or whatever, like widescreen mode, like the rare stuff, and that's just a different approach. I don't think it's a bad approach in that the games themselves are mostly still there, but I think that I don't know if there's a line somewhere, but Mega Man's Mega Man. Mega Man is a classic. Mega Man is undeniably like something that people are still going to know about 50 years from now. This isn't just some game that's hot now. Like it has withstood the test of time, and it is something that will endure. And these original games, like I think, have to be presented the way they were. I think we have to take games that seriously that we're willing to go out there and get people yelling at us for making them too authentic, because I think we need to start doing that. I think we're at the point where we need to do that, and I think we've been bad at it traditionally. I'm going to start bad-mouthing other games if I go too far here. So,
Mega Man has like a specific feel to it that if you played those games back in the day, I feel like a lot of the people complaining must have been people who didn't play them back in the day and are just trying it now.
And like, can you imagine if we fixed glitches, like how that would ruin speedruns? I mean, granted, it would give them something new to play with, I guess, but it's like
they nerfed the Metal Blade. Oh,
yeah. You can't nerf the Metal Blade. The Metal Blade is unnerfable.
We tried, actually. No, we went in there and nerfed it, and it just got stronger somehow.
It was weird.
It can fire in 16 directions now.
But I think it's important to keep that stuff, especially in games. Like, I think it's more important to keep the flaws in games than it is in film, because like it actually affects your experience with it if you can't do something that you could do previously, even if it wasn't like intended. And that's in air quotes, because we can't say what was intended and what wasn't, and we'll never be able to, even if we sat down everyone who worked on the game.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Well, I think
one thing. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting you bring that up, because that's something I've been sort of kicking around in my mind as we've been, approaching this show. Is the fact that I don't, we got into that discussion about hobbyists versus professional and that sort of thing. I think that we really, like, I think you were right on that you said that it's really no one individual's burden, right? Like everybody should, it should be something that you want to do. But I think that there is something to be said for the fact that there might be a venue or a need to have a professional non-profit approach to it, which we do with a lot with like film preservation and stuff like that. Because as awesome as it is that like Capcom and your company are doing this game the way it was intended, you guys are still exceptions, right? Yeah. Like most do not do it that way. And and
because we're a commercial, there's limitations to what we can do that an MPO
right.
have. Yeah.
Right. And again, I think the game turned out fantastic. I love it. I'm glad it exists. But I think that because you are an exception, because there are even limitations of what you did, I think that we need to have something like I don't know if it like academia is the answer or something like that. Of course I'm going to suggest that academia is the answer because I'm biased.
You're literally wearing a tie right now.
I'm literally wearing a tie. I was literally on a college campus today, preparing for a new semester. But that to me, I think, and there was that discussion a few months ago about this notion of trying to take game preservation seriously as an academic discipline, of having people train for it. And I think that's fantastic. And I think it was disturbing that we saw some actual pushback against that. People saying that, well, just emulating this stuff is fine. We don't need academic, nonprofit organizations.
We don't need no book learning types.
Right. And the thing
it's a new thing. Like it's a new thing that people care about. And sorry, let me let you finish before I.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that it seems like the software is just part of it.
Yeah.
With a lot of games, the hardware is just as important, and not just like the consoles. I'm talking like arcade machines, right? Mm-hmm. Like for example, I could get Super Hang-On my 3DS. And it will, those 3D Classics games are fantastic. They're beautifully emulated, right?
Love them.
Yeah, they're great. Every single one is great. Well, except for Altered Beast. But that's because Altered Beast wasn't good to begin with.
It's true.
Yeah, but
more shots fired.
Thank God we can download 3D versions of Altered Beast and Urban Champion.
Right.
What the world
I actually
needs.
do have the 3D Urban Champion. I don't know why, but you know, the fact that that game required at some point an actual motorcycle you sat on, leaned, and turned, and that sort of thing. There's only probably going to be a handful of those that still really work or in good condition, and most are going to be held by private collectors. We actually had at the local museum here a show or a showcase of this guy's collection. He collects old arcade machines, and it was really, really cool to see something because he took really, really good care of them. But again, like it seems to me like if we had like an actual sort of professional, I don't know, like a museum or university or some place that was able to put up the space to keep some of this stuff, I think that's the other part that doesn't really get talked about a lot. Is that, you know, what happens if we want to talk about DDR but we don't have a functioning DDR machine?
Well, that is 100 times less scary than World of Warcraft. You know, how do you preserve?
You cannot play WoW in its original state.
How do you replicate live people?
Right.
Within the game's like original time, you know, you can't. It's impossible. And even if you get DDR running, you can't. You know, there's a hard line for all this stuff. Like even with DDR, you can't replicate DDR being a cultural phenomenon.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you can't replicate that time and place in a playable form, right?
Right.
So I think of course, like physical hardware preservation is extremely important, but you know, even that's not enough. So there's a line with everything.
I have to plug one of our chatty comments who actually said something that really ties into this. He said he loves playing games with original controls because he has adapters for the original controllers. He has arcade sticks, PS2 pads, N64 controllers, knockoff Nintendo pads that he hooked up to his PC, and that sort of thing. You know, it adds to the authenticity feeling.
Yeah. So that, you know, it's there is absolutely a need for an NPO if and that is absolutely what I will do before I die.
I will donate. I will do whatever you need. Just let me know. I'll donate to it.
That is on his bucket list. I mean, like you are identifying things I identified years ago, and I know exactly what we need to be doing. And yes, physical museums are part of it. That's not me. I never want to do that. But there are physical museums. They do exist.
But they'll probably consult with you when they do happen.
Well, that's what I identified as a need was some kind of liaison for these physical archives. Like that does not exist now. It's just I mean, it sort of exists in that, you know, they call Frank. You know, like that happens, but like there's only so far that like these individuals like me being like, you know, Jason Scott and my coworker Mike Micah and like several others who I'm very terribly not recalling right now, but like there's a lot of us, right? But it is this disparate thing where it's just like there are some experts here and there, but it's no one's job right now to be that central point of contact that like traffic cops this stuff or
to put a bow on it, since we're running out of time.
I actually just had one more quick thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That I just wanted to ask you about, Frank. The ESA, what was this about? Yeah, back in April, they said that preserving games that have been abandoned by the publisher or whatever is illegal. So like your definition of World of Warcraft, how do we keep that going? Like, you know, the argument would be, well, we'd make a sort of like a fake server, we'd make our own server. But I
think that's less authentic than just taking a video of someone playing right now.
Right. But and I agree with you. But the ESA is saying that we can't even do that. What do you think about that?
I think that's what happens when you try to get make this, you know, get legalities involved. I think that's always the way it's going to be. Like there's no way around that, and we have to.
They are the industry's lobbying group for all the good they do for the industry. They're also on behalf of the companies.
Right. You know? They're not they're a non-profit organization, but they are serving commercial interests.
Mhm.
I mean, so they are not.
They're
the
always going to
answer for
take
that sort of thing.
the answer that is least risky to companies.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
their job. We can't blame them for it. It's their job.
Yep.
I can blame them
So
for it a
anyway,
little bit.
Yeah, you can. You can if you want to.
I am actively seeking an NPO lawyer that would work pro bono on this. So
Oh wow,
I think it's the first time I've ever said that.
another hot scoop here on the chat.
Nice.
Well, no, I am actively interested in finding. I'm not.
So if you are
Okay.
listening to this and you are a lawyer, so to put a bow on this, we did have a couple of members mentioning that they would like to see video game museums. It sounds like
There's some.
Spazium and one random winner said they'd like to see a dedicated video game museum with backlog collections. It sounds like the real impetus to that is there needs to be interest enough to generate profit.
Mhm.
They need to have like a business model.
So the
that
National
looks solid.
Video Game Museum is opening soon in Austin. That's run by the guys who ran the Classic Gaming Expo for a long time. Like if you go to
Yeah,
E3,
you mentioned
that
the
booth.
Computer History Museum.
Computer History Museum exists. It's got some video game stuff, but it's not really a video game history museum. The Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York is wonderful. But, there's, like, what's the purpose of a museum? Is the purpose of a museum you get to go in there and play every game ever made? I don't think that's the purpose of a museum.
Yeah,
The purpose of a museum is typically to tell a story. And, we're really not there yet, but, like, there's sort of two parts to it, right? Like the Strong Museum of Play, for example, there is a video game exhibit. But
there was
also a crazy archive downstairs that's in their library that researchers can have limited access to. Like, I can go in there and in fact I did for this exact project and access their copies of the Rockman games and be able to read the manuals and stuff. So it's those organizations do exist in their what I'd call early days. What doesn't exist is that sort of middleman thing, and I think that needs to happen ASAP because people are dying.
I agree.
That's what people do.
And you know what I would love to see? I mean, this sounds like the job for some sort of person whose job it is to fact find and write about it. I don't know who that would be.
If only we knew someone.
If only we knew someone who could do this. What I would love to see is like a comparison of what was the museum state of like film museums at this far into the life of film, versus comic book museum versus this far into the life of comic books, something like that. Like, are we on track with that sort of thing? Because that would make me feel a lot more comfortable that there is a future in it. If I knew that like we were at least roughly analogous to the progress of those museums.
That we that like was it 90% of silent films made before like 1922 or something like that are gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
See,
think
that's
we're quite
terrifying.
that bad with games yet, and I'll defer to you on that one, Frank. But at least I don't.
It's impossible to ever be that bad because games were never screened and then thrown away.
There was one copy, and it was in a building that's not on fire.
Yeah.
Luckily,
but we are definitely there with a lot of video game history. But do we have every Android game that's ever been on the shop? Probably not. A lot of those are probably gone forever. But again, there's always a limit, and that you can't lose sleep over everything. But I think you can target and hope for the best.
Agreed. So we're going to put a bow on that and go into our final remaining segments for the end of the show here. First, Brian, would you like to say a few words about our sponsors?
Yes, I would, Steve. Audible is offering you and the listeners of the Shacknews Chattycast a free audiobook download as well as a free 30-day trial to check out their service. Lots of great books on games, tech, and other topics, hundreds of them to choose from. Every week we're going to highlight one that we've personally enjoyed and think you might too. This week, since we're talking about video game history and the preservation thereof, we have chosen Blake J. Harris's Console Wars, a riveting account of Sega of America's fight to challenge the Nintendo juggernaut in the early 1990s, told from the perspective of those who lived it. Now, of course, if you've been following the news, for example, here on Shacknews.com, this book has been optioned to become a movie, but you can get in early and be one of those guys who says that the book was better by listening to Console Wars or you don't have to read it, just listen to it. You listen to that or any of over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download. Just visit audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's audibletrial.com/chattycast.
Yeah, we actively encourage people to be the obnoxious friend in a group.
You got to
So we're
promotion
gonna
of
hit.
Game of Thrones. Beat him to this one.
We're gonna hit a single newsy bit this week, just because we're running a little short on time. The Pokemon fighting game Pokken Tournament is coming to Wii U.
Okay.
How psyched are you for a Pokemon fighting game,
I
Brian?
feel like I have to see what this thing is. Like, I'm not excited for it per se, but considering it's one of the only Wii U games that's coming out past this year that we really know about for sure, that's exciting. I don't.
Sounds so bizarre. I'm very curious.
It looks like it looks a little bit like Urguys or Tobal, which is a step in the right direction because I think we haven't had a game like that in a while, and we should. But I don't know, man. This is too like I have to try it just because it is that bizarre.
You said Urguys, and I thought of Einhander, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Einhander was also good. Square was putting out some really interesting B tier stuff around then, but
yeah.
I think
It was
we
a
need
weird
a Pokemon Einhander.
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Just fighting Diglets or whatever.
So it is time once again, ladies and gentlemen, for Beat the Doc. The part of the show.
Was that the entire news section?
That was the entire news section.
Huh.
Newsy Bits is very explicitly very quick takes on news items.
Okay, cool.
So, time for Beat the Doc, the part of the show in which I abuse my hosting powers by pitting my friends against each other in a pointless game. As always, our guest will go first. Today's game is a very Mega Man themed version of box quotes. So I'm going to read a quote from a Mega Man game box, and you have to tell me what it is. This time I won't be using blanks to disguise the franchise because that should be pretty obvious. So, Frank, you're going first.
Okay, so is this any game with Mega Man in the title?
Any game with Mega Man in it.
Oh, God.
It's not necessarily just original classic series.
Okay.
Classic of Mega Man. All right. And some of these quotes are hilariously over the top, especially this first one. Mega Man, the chosen defender of the human race, for he dares to single-handedly penetrate Monsteropolis's seven separate
That
societies.
is Mega Man 1 on the NES.
That is Mega Man 1, the
Yeah.
OG, the only one that said Monsteropolis. They also, later in the quote, we didn't get to this part, but they say, the rapid expansion of strange misrepresentation of humans.
Yeah.
So,
What?
Yeah, there was not any continuity between.
they made it sound very Blade Runner-y, like he was
Yeah.
going after replicants, which is the plot of Mega Man X. Anyway. So, Brian, your turn.
Sure.
That is 1 point for Frank. Your turn.
Monsteropolis. So whatever.
So the early ones, I will warn you, are pretty easy, so hold on. Dr. Wily will stop at nothing to control the world, and who would have thought his next move would be to attack the world's most popular sport?
Mega Man Soccer.
That's great.
Mega Man Soccer, you are correct.
I don't know if that's the worst Mega Man game, but it's got to be up there.
It's in there. It's in the running, yeah, definitely. Frank, this one is very short, and I feel like it's going to be pretty hard. Explosive gameplay, extreme graphics.
Huh? Is that God? Can that be Mega Man X?
That is Mega Man X4.
I knew it was one of the PlayStation ones, but I couldn't remember which one.
Extreme graphics was a reference to it being on the PlayStation, yeah.
I see.
So
That totally could have been X1 though.
yeah. It could have been any of them.
It could have been X3.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't. X3 was ugly as hell.
They had that chip in it, though. They had the Super FX chip in it.
It looked so bad.
Yeah, but the box copy said, "This is an ugly game. Won't you buy it?"
That's right. I'm sorry.
It's different.
Again, I will defer to you for.
So Brian, Proto Man has gone berserk. Destroying half the city was not enough. Now he has snatched Dr. Light and is holding him and the entire city hostage.
It's Mega Man 5, right?
No, he destroyed half the city, so how is he holding the entire city hostage? Yes, it's Mega Man 5.
Yeah, because he's the bad guy until you fight him and realize it's actually Dr. Wily again.
Yeah, because it always is. Yeah.
Rockman 5 : Proto Man. No, sorry. Blues' Trap ? Yeah.
The least convincing question mark of all time.
Proto
So
Man's
Frank.
Trap is the name of the achievement for beating that one, by the way.
Nice.
It's on the subtitle.
For a tie, far away in an isolated wasteland, a mysterious girl and an infamous treasure have been discovered.
Huh.
They get harder as we go. I should have mentioned.
So is it my turn?
Yes, it is your turn.
Okay. I have not played anything past Super Nintendo. So this is
Well, then this is going to
really
be especially difficult for you.
So that sounds like an RPG-ish kind of plot, so I'm going to go Legends.
Legends 2, but yeah,
Okay.
that was pretty close. Legends 2.
Okay.
Legends 2. What was her name? I can't remember her name.
I
Sarah.
don't remember either.
I
I
don't
was
remember
looking at
much
the
about
back of the
Mega Man
box.
Legends 2.
So Brian is our winner, but I'm gonna
Ow.
read this last one just because this was my ultra hard bonus / tiebreaker. Join Megaman.exe, his pal Lan, and friends as they keep the world safe from cyber mayhem in the most expansive battle network adventure yet. Together with the white version, find all of
Oh,
Mega Man's battle style changes.
that's 3, isn't it?
Oh my God! How did you know that? Wait, what was the color associated with 3?
I believe one was blue and one was white.
Yes, that was 3 blue. Oh my goodness!
I
I did
think
not
I had the
expect.
blue version.
I did not
Actually,
expect
that's why
either
I
of you
know.
to get that. That was my ultra hard one. You totally ruined it. So-
Again, I should point out I don't get these ahead of time.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just completely
Sure.
sad
my,
and
my goal is to humiliate Brian every week, and sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail.
you brought the wrong ammo this time, son.
Yeah, I guess so. I should have stuck with the classic series since Frank is more of an expert on the OG. Anyway,
Yeah, I did spend most of this year with them.
yeah,
Actually, all of this year.
Well, you
I
can do
had
this
to
next
try to
year.
tell.
It'll be great.
it would look so stacked if I was just reading things from all classic games for you. Anyway, so that is Beat the Doc, and that is the show. So thank you for listening. We still have some codes for Rainbow Six Siege to give away, so go onto iTunes, leave us a review. We will be closing that contest probably early September, sometime in the next couple of weeks. I will announce it beforehand, obviously. At any rate, yeah, that's the show. So, Frank, other than Mega Man Legacy Collection, do you do you have anything you want to plug?
No. If you are the IP holder of classic video games, go to digitaleclipse.com and contact me and see what we can do for you.
Yeah, I can't wait to play Super Mario Brothers Legacy Collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm super-
definitely what's going to happen, yeah.
I'm legitimately super excited to see what you
Any day
guys
now.
do next with that engine.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
am. I actually am too. Now,
Me too, turns out.
maybe I can ask this in such a way that you don't have to break anyone's trust or put yourself in a weird position. But
Mhm.
if you could choose any classic IP to do next, regardless of who you've been in talks with and who you think is realistic, what would you actually choose?
I said Mother the last couple times, but those are pretty good shape, other than Mother 3 now, because they have the Mother 1 on Virtual Console now. Let's see, I'm just going to try to find an out-of-left field one. How about Snatcher and Police Knot?
Ooh,
There you go.
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That'd be cool. Yeah.
exactly as popular and revered as Mega Man.
I
So-
think that'd be fairly easily portable.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of simple games. So
Well, it's not like Konami's doing anything with them anyway.
right.
Yeah. Although Konami would have to be publishing games for that
Right.
fantasy to work.
Maybe if you told them it was like a pachinko machine, they'd be down for it.
Yeah. There you go.
So if they weren't already being done beautifully by Double Fine, I'd say the Scum adventure games from LucasArts.
Oh, that'd be good too.
Oh,
I'd
that
love a
would
new
be good,
Sam.
yeah.
I'd love a remake of Sam and Max.
I'm still not happy with the Monkey Island special editions.
We could
but-
devolve into a whole discussion about like
yeah.
what makes those. You said they were being done beautifully, so yeah. We'll
Yeah.
just take that as a general compliment and not ramble
Well,
on. for
special
another half
edition
hour.
was not Double Fine, but
Yeah. So anyway, that is the show. If our recommendations have not convinced you yet, go out and try the Mega Man Legacy Collection, especially if you play the originals, because it's so nostalgic. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Even if you haven't, this is like a good time to get on there and find out what those old people in your life are going on about.
Yeah, my brother. A short anecdote. I'll just say before we sign off. My brother has a son who's approaching teenagehood. I think he's around 13, somewhere around there. And he basically has been saying like, I don't care. His quote for saying he doesn't care about what the graphics look like is, I don't care about beauty, which sounds very which sounds very like he's talking about dating. But at any rate, so
I'm glad everyone's enjoying it.
he keeps
like,
destroying games before my brother even gets to them. So he's like, here, play Mega Man games.
Yeah, that'll learn you.
That'll be the challenge. Yeah.
glad everyone's enjoying it because all I can see, as you might imagine, are the flaws right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure
really
as a
glad
creator, that's your curse.
that's my job and my curse. Yep.
Just know that gross nerds like me, who are very obsessed with Mega Man, are very, very happy with this.
I did it.
Yeah.
I pleased some gross nerds. Hooray!
Yeah. Woo!
So that's the show. Thank you again, Frank, for appearing on the show. It was great hearing from you, and just in general, your thoughts and insights on game preservation were great to hear.
And you only got a couple of them, so
yeah. So we need to have you on again. Just do this topic again.
Yeah.
Look forward to the sequel
when you release the Mother Collection.
Mega Man X Legacy Collection.
Yeah, the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. So that is the show. I'm Steve Watts.
I'm Brian Carr.
And we will see you on Chatty.